Hello, I'm Dustin with Kruger Instruments and Kruger's Training Academy. With this video, we're going to go through the USC 10th edition test procedures for the RPZ. This is the verbatim test procedures from the book of USC utilizing a 2-valve test kit. If you're testing in Florida and Georgia specifically, but also other places, there might be an additional check valve 2 differential pressure reading. For us, we're not going to do that. This is just the verbatim. So if you're looking for that, you want to check out our other procedures. On the YouTube channel, we have a bunch of different test procedures. You got the one hose from ASSE, you got the USC 10, whatever you got. This is going to be the verbatim ones. So if you're in California, anything out west, they usually just do this. They don't have any additional steps. It's just from the book. You're taking a class and you're studying for the exam. We have some very elaborate videos, including the diagnostic failures and stuff like that. Check out the other videos. But I guess let's just get to it. This is the USC 10th. We're going to test this valve, fill out a test report, explain each step. First step, it's not really written. A lot of times it is written, but sometimes it's not. Notify, identify, inspect, observe. You should also know what all those mean. So sometimes the proctor might be like, oh yeah, who are you notifying? What are you observing? You should know what you're doing with that. There's a big long list of what each thing means in the book. Definitely read the book. After that, you go ahead and flush your test cocks. We're doing an RP, so there's 4 test cocks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 shutoffs. You have shutoff 2 is the outlet. Shutoff 1 is the inlet. When you flush your test cocks the way USC wants you to do it, open 4. Just have a little trickle flow. You don't have to have them blowing on everybody. If you're in the test class, make sure you don't like spray in the, unless it's really hot, and then sometimes people appreciate that you're spraying everyone. So open 4, 3, 2, 1, then you close 1, close 2, close 3, close 4. Next step, you have to install appropriate fittings. Some proctors will totally be worried about you saying, I'm installing an appropriate fitting. This is a Watts kit. The smaller diameter Watts ones, they usually come with the, like the hookups for that. It has to be 1/4 inch flare. That's what your gauge is attached to, 1/4 inch flare. If it's like 1/2 inch raw end, you gotta do a 1/2 by 1/4 and a 1/4 by flare adapter. Usually for the exams, they're not super worried about it. The test prep stands are pretty much always 1/4 inch flare sticking up. But they might want you to say like, oh, I'm installing my fittings. Next, you close all your needle valves on the test kit. We're utilizing the 2-valve kit. If you have a 3 or a 5-valve kit, we actually have different videos. The test procedures are a little different. We're utilizing the Kruger Instruments TK2. If you haven't bought a test kit or you have your own class and you want to resell test kits, definitely check us out. The link should be in the description for Kruger Instruments. It's all ASSE 1064 compliant. You have high and low pressure bleeds, no gauge manifold control valves. The 5-valve will have like 2 up here and 3 down here. 3-valve usually have 3 up at the top. This is the 2-valve version. You also have a line pressure kit. So I guess let's get started with the test. So you close your needle valves. We have 3 hoses, red, blue, and yellow. That is actually the industry standard with these. If you have an older kit, or specifically some of the Watts kits, I believe like high pressure is yellow. For us, high is red, low is blue, vent or bypass is yellow. That's pretty much the industry standard. If you got like a Midwest kit, one of the newer Watts ones, that's generally going to be what you have. So you attach your high to 2, attach low to 3. Then you attach your bypass. Make sure it's on the low side. For USC, they want you to flow everything a very specific way. Make sure you're doing everything properly. If you're doing other test procedures, they don't really care, but USC is very worried about it. The reason being is you might jump the relief valve prematurely. So if you're testing a valve that's been sitting there a year or 6 months without testing it, You might have it where the relief valve jumps open and then you test the relief valve. You want to get that relief valve opening point when it first opens, like as if it hasn't been touched in however long since the last time it was tested, or last time there was a backflow condition. So you open 3, open low bleed, open test cock 2, open high bleed. While these are running, you shut your outlet shut off. Then you close your high. Your gauge should actually go to the high end of the scale, they refer to it as. So you might want to open it a little more, make sure it goes all the way to like 15 or 16 or 12 or whatever. Then you close your low bleed after you've shut the shut off. This is going to be your apparent check valve 1 reading. Important to note, you don't take that reading now. It's possible that you have flow through the assembly. It's possible shut off 2 is leaking and you have flow. So you don't get that reading just yet. You just get it to, it's called the apparent reading. Some of the diagnostics will refer to the apparent. Otherwise, you won't really come up with it. I'm getting 7.0. The little tiny slashes are 0.2. The larger ones are 1.0. Since it's a line, like you don't shut off 1, you might see where it's fluctuating a tiny bit. So now it's 7.2. You just get the reading. If you're getting a reading, you just get it when it's like mostly close. If you're in a test class and you don't have a whole lot of pressure, sometimes it'll be jumping a lot. Like every time somebody opens something, it's jumping. But you just want to get it when it's proper, when it's more or less steady. We do actually get our first reading now. If you look on your line pressure kit, I'm reading 46, 45. It is fluctuating a tiny bit. So we go ahead and write that on the test report. If you're taking an exam with ABPA or AWWA, they might not ask you for the line pressure. For us, we do. It's generally a good idea to write it down. So I'd say 45. So we've hooked everything up. Now we're gonna go to the relief valve opening point test. You attach your bypass hose to the high side. Open high, open low. They call it open low slightly. Some people say a quarter turn. I would do it a lot less than a quarter turn. You want to get that reading when it first opens. So we go ahead and open the low. You see it starts dropping. 4.5 I'm getting. So you see it's barely open and I'm getting 4.5. If you open it up a little more, you'll notice it's open. I'm reading 3.6, but that's not the opening point. It's open at 3.6, but the opening point was when it first opened a little tiny bit, and what I got was 4.5. So you go ahead and write that down. That's your first official reading, 4.5. If you're doing anything 3-hose, specifically USC, you can't really tell if it opened fully. You don't need to. It's not part of the test. So you just put NA if it's on your test report. If you want to put in your notes, I did the 3-hose test. Check that out. If you're doing a 1-hose test, they do actually have an additional step for that. Next, we're going to do the tightness of check valve 2. So you close both of your bleeds. You detach the bypass from the low bleed. Then you attach the bypass to test cock 4. Once you're ready, you open test cock 4. Remember, a high bleed is closed because you closed both of them. Now you're going to reset the gauge. If you notice it's at a much lower number, 5 or so, that's because the gauges are only accurate going down. If you have a digital gauge, they are accurate both ways. Anything analog, like Midwest, Watts, Kruger, whatever you got, it's not accurate going up. It's only accurate going down. So you have to reset your gauge. So you open and close low. It goes up to the high end. Then you close it. I'm back to 7.1, 7.0, which we had before. Now we're going to do the tightness of number 2 check. All you do is you introduce full line pressure behind the check valve. So you open high. You'll notice the gauge will go down a little bit. So it went from 7 to 6.4. That's actually totally normal. That doesn't mean anything's leaking. Completely normal. It's called disc compression. What you want to worry about is if the gauge keeps going down. That means you have a leaky check 2. Since we're steady at 6.4, that means that the check valve is holding. It's holding that extra pressure behind. So we go ahead and mark check valve 2 as closed tight. If you have a test report that has the PSI for the check valve 2, you just say back pressure. Some of them don't. A lot of them will only have tight or leaking. You just write back pressure on it. You don't actually test the shutoffs. You don't even open shutoff 1 or close shutoff 1. Shutoff 2 you close, but it doesn't actually matter if it's leaking. The big reason is after you do this test, we'll go over it for the check 1. But essentially the flow should run through the gauge. Once you have the check valve 2 reading, so remember you have high hooked up, test cock 2, 3, and 4 open, high and low hooked up to your gauge. Bypass goes off the high side, goes into test cock 4 doing the back pressure. So you just open and close low bleed, reset the gauge one more time. Now I'm getting 7.7. That's your check 1 reading. It's really important to make sure that the check 1 is in a no flow condition, they call it. The way we've confirmed the no flow, you got 2 open, you got 4 open, you got your high open. If shutoff 2 is leaking, it's gonna leak through the gauge, not through the check valve. So the check valve is definitely in a no flow condition. So what do we get? 7.7, closed tight. For this one, we would then say it passes the exam, like it passed the test. If you have something failing, check out our other videos. We have diagnostics showing what to do if something fails. The USC 10th edition has a lot of very elaborate diagnostics depending on what's failing, which is good if you're in the field. You just want to make sure the valve is working. If the shutoffs don't work or one of the check valves doesn't work, you might be able to test the rest of the assembly, or you might not be able to. But definitely check out our other videos referring to the diagnostics. To break it down, you just close all of your test cocks, remove all of equipment. Some test procedures say to restore to pre-test condition. For USC, it just says to open the shutoff. It assumes that it was open when you got there. I would say if you're doing a irrigation valve or something like an isolation valve, you might not want to open it. If you showed up and it was closed, but in the field, you might want to leave it closed. If you're on an exam, you should probably open it. They would probably fail you for forgetting to open it. But anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. I hope we helped you explain the test procedures. If you did get some value from this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Comment if you have any questions. A lot of times people have the same questions and they can look at the comments instead of commenting and waiting for a response. Again, we appreciate you checking it out. It's Dustin with Kruger Instruments and Kruger Training Academy.